Or, even when I manage people and coach people, I give them all my tool. I'm like, here's my toolbox. Like, here's everything I learned. It's how I put it together. It's not here's the tool, go use it. It's how you use it. How do you deal with when you get stuck? Those are the things that we need mentors, we need coaches, we need teachers that are empowered to do that, to not just like send a kid to use a tool, but really support them in understanding what goes inside and how a tool can help or not help, or who do they need to go and talk to, how do they get motivated when things are so hard. Those are the things that like we cannot in our barreling towards everything agent control, we cannot forget the humans. Otherwise we're actually going to lose the potential of so many humans behind. And the collective journey talks about the ability, kind of the superpositioning of both my own self-individual that has full rights, full self-expression in relationship and reciprocity with the collective at every given moment. Because I'm always me, myself, but I'm always part of a community, part of a family, part of a group, part of a tribe, part of everything. And how do we actually allow for both? The voice of the collective and the voice of the individual. And the good news is that if you do that, you'll feel richer, and doesn't matter where you are. Because when you have your community around you, you feel better. So in these times of VUCA, forge community.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Future Hacker. I'm your host, Maria Taide, and today we're talking to Maya Zuckerman. She's a fractional COO and operational goddess, helping purpose-driven startups scale while proving that businesses can be both profitable and a force for good. With experience in climate tech, Web3, and social impact ventures, she excels at aligning people, technology, and strategy. Today, we will explore regenerative and circular economies, neurodiversity leadership, and the shift from the hero journey to the collective journey, a perspective that is transforming industries. Hey Maya, how are you doing? It's great to have you with us today.
I'm doing great. Great to be here, Maria, and great to be on.
Amazing to have you. So listen, you have a really cool journey spanning startups, technology, social impact, and regenerative economy, right? So let's begin from the start. Like, how did it all begin and what led you here?
Ooh, it's the big question, right? And it's not an easy one to answer because it's not one thing, it's multiple things. And it is regenerative. The concept of regeneration is to have a place better than you found it. And I think that's just like my MO, my modus operandum. And it's a value, it's a principle that I strive to get to. So within that, where did I start? I started in really complex and diverse background. I was born and raised in Israel. I served in the military there, like everybody has to be. And that also teaches you, like, we're a startup nation. It teaches you to think on your feet. It teaches you how to deal with adversity and hardship, even though I wasn't in a combat role, but the whole country is always in an existential crisis and threat. And of course, recent years has been even worse. But that also taught me teamwork. That taught me different aspects of like really working fast. And after the army, I also worked in. I have also worked in a kitchen. I was a cook, so that taught me how, again, think fast on my feet, work in a really fast environment, and that got me into startups. And my first startup was a mixture of both of my things that I really love, which is art animation. So it was a facial motion capture startup. So we developed a software, very, very, very groundbreaking and innovative for its time. And I was a QA and a animator. And that actually got me going. I had a career in visual effects, animation, film, gaming, all the things. But I kept going back and forth between very innovative media tech or startups, etc., and more creative endeavors. And that started to get me going. But I've always had when people ask me, why do you care about the environment so much? It's a meme. And I say, because I live there. We live on this amazing planet. I think my first kind of, memories of like TV shows were the 80s, and it was David Attenborough and Carl Sagan. So Cosmos, like the cosmic perspective and the love of our own planet. So having that inception is what, this is a little bit of what kind of got me to where I am today, where it's all these different things. It's innovation, it's tech, it's narrative, it's gaming, it's storytelling, but it's also the environment, it's also our planet, and it's also the cosmic perspective. So it's all these things that got me to think in this different way, which is much more of a ecosystem way of thinking. It's a much more 360 way of thinking versus a linear. And also it is something that I discovered that not everybody thinks in the way or sees the world, but the ones they do kind of we connect really deeply because we have all this kind of concept of what we call neurodivergence right now, which is dyslexia, ADHD, etc. And it's both a gift and a curse, but the gift of it is the ability to be able to see in this way.
Yeah, so getting into that, you mentioned to me that you were diagnosed later in life, and like I would guess like most of our generation, like that nowadays, kids nowadays for sure they are able to get it diagnosed earlier in life. But how has this discovery impacted your life and the way you work? And most of the people that I interview that has some sort of neurodiversity is like and what I love about it is how we consider that a superpower, right? Because there's so much to it. And so how do you feel it impacted your life and the choices that you're making today?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, you always know that you think differently, and it was more a journey for self-discovery. And again, where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of diagnosis, even though there were hints. There were always hints. School teachers saying, "Oh, her brain goes so fast beyond anything we can see in the rest of the class," but then the rest of her sometimes lags behind. Those type of things where, or she sees things that other people don't see, connections and patterns and things. All those things that you hear in parent-teacher meetings, etc. But it wasn't the culture to really diagnose people as much as it is today. And I think it's both a curse and absolutely a superpower. When it was a curse, it was trying to fit myself into a normative world. And it just doesn't work that easy. And, it's just, not knowing that that's what you're having, then you don't actually get the help that you need. So you have to do that all by yourself. So there's, a lot of the hardships is like my own self-discovery of like, oh, this is, and, again, ADHD is different than dyslexia, but they very much come together in a lot of people. So understand, and it's kind of like, oh, so what's my dyslexia and what's my ADHD, to even understand what's the power and where do I actually, what are the issues that I need to actually, what are the challenges I need to deal with? And actually having, I think the diagnosis specifically of the dyslexia was like more of a, I know that, but now that I have the diagnosis, I'm like, and now I can actually say somebody else has already validated. And it's a validation even more, because then I can ask for help, or I can say, hey, I'm really good at writing. Don't ever ask me to proofread. Like,
no, exactly. Why? It can be like somehow an acceptance and an understanding. Okay, yeah, where to go, where to avoid. Right? It's just
exactly.
You can stir your way better, right?
Yeah, and being very upfront about, this is where, you want me to think outside the box. Great, this is exactly my superpower. Do you want me to think about, multiple companies and how they connect and think through all these things? I'm your person. Do you want me to like sit in a chair 9 to 5 and just do tasks? I'll go mad. So and then it's also not a utilization of my superpowers. So I think, and I think it's for other younger folks. If I think it is really important to get diagnosed, because then you could, I believe that I'd be probably even further in my career than where I am right now if I was earlier diagnosed, and not have to do the personal self-discovery But on the other side, I wouldn't be the thinker that I am today. So there's like, there's the, oh, what did I miss? But also, what did I gain? And yeah. And also knowing that people with ADHD tend to ruminate. So knowing that the rumination is probably not the best utilization of my thought process, and how do I let that go? And that's kind of part of it. It's part of the growing into knowing that this is your superpower, and how do you actually not just being regret, which is again ADHD rumination. I only the last few years read that is part of the diagnosis, like kind of the very much thinking about the past a lot, ruminating about the past a lot is actually part of ADHD. So yeah, so it's a really interesting one.
As much as we are getting better on the diagnosis side, I wonder like how prepared the schools are as well, because just as you're saying that how now you can adapt professionally, and you know what to do on the job, if we were able to work that when people are younger, and because schools is all about still fitting in, and it's not supposed to be like that. Like it should be more personal. Like it doesn't matter, not even being not just talking about neurodiversity, but each one of us have our own rhythms, and no matter what the reasons, and just this fitting in that you use, it gets into the way of education big time, right?
Absolutely. And I think technology can help, but because we're moving into a world where we're relying way too much on technology and not enough on the humans, we're missing that part of where I could have got help and where I'm helping other people, or even when I manage people and coach people, I give them all my tool. I'm like, here's my toolbox. Like, here's everything I learned. And it's how I put it together. It's not here's a tool, go use it. It's how you use it. How do you deal with when you get stuck? Those are the things that we need mentors, we need coaches, we need teachers that are empowered to do that, to not just like send a kid to use a tool, but really support them in understanding what goes inside, and how a tool can help or not help, or who do they need to go and talk to, how do they get motivated when things are so hard. Those are the things that like we cannot, in our barreling towards everything agent control, we cannot forget the humans, otherwise we're actually going to lose the potential of so many humans behind.
Yes, exactly. And talking about being resilient as well, right? And this is something that the younger generations, like it's hard enough, but I feel that that's even getting a even more important topic, right? So you help startup scale, right? You work as a fractional COO. So can we cover the foundations of that? How it is to work as a fractional COO?
So, I kind of give myself the name fractional CO. So I started last year with a full-time job, and like I was already working there for 3 years with Holla and Holochain, a phenomenal Web3 organization. They restructured late last year. So my fractionality has like gained I'm literally our working fractional. I'm the director of operation. The fractional CO is kind of like my own title for myself, because that's what I do for different groups. And then I advise different groups. And then I have my own projects that I'm developing. But right now with Holla and Holochain, so I'm fractional on each one of them. And then I'm not going to name the name of the company, but we're spinning up another company from that group. Probably by the time this is out, I'll probably be announcing it. So that's the third one. And then I'm advising another climate tech group. It's the fourth one. Then I have my own project that I'm developing with a friend that's part tech, part narrative. So, and I really believe a lot of entrepreneurs go into this phase of it's called a portfolio career, where you do multiple things. You're not just one thing, and you see it in the world. A lot of the younger folks, I'm this, I'm this, I'm that, and I think that's the way we move forward. There will be, of course, 2/3 of the population working one job, and maybe a third, which is probably the more neurodivergent. They need to jump from a thing to a thing. Are going to be the ones that are like, well, I need this and I need this and I need that. I think for me, myself is my interest. Like I have so much interest in so many things, and I also want to utilize my time, not just do 9 to 5, but actually what's beyond. Like what can I build in the world? What are things that I can support? So, um, really kind of getting to this next level of giving more. And also, as you get more experience in your work, your hour is sometimes somebody else's 5 hours. So, can I give that hour of efficiency and support and also delegate? Like, I don't have to do everything, I have a team. So, an hour of a manager delegating for 5 people, all of a sudden that's exponential. If it's 10 people, if it's 100 people. So, how do we actually go more and do that? Like, very, very focused in, do the work, get it done, or support the others to grow. So that's a lot of what I do. I do people ops, I do tech ops, like kind of startup operations, some sales ops, biz dev, and just like innovation and develop, like business development. That's kind of my newer personal startup that I'm in partnership right now. Hopefully, in the next 6 months, I'll be able to talk more about that.
As you mentioned, that we see in the future, as much as we are going to keep having those traditional jobs right there, and for the profile of people that enjoy, having the hours in the office and things like that, uh, I completely agree, and I see as a trend of being more common for people. Just it's a project based work, right? We all have different interests. We don't need to be most of our time in the same little square doing the same tasks. I do see that, having those project based works and collective and co-creations and with people all around the world, that's something that it's going to increase, right? As much as we still have the big corporations forbidding people to have a second revenue generation source, I'm not sure how this is going to be handled in the future. But on the same time, I see that they're both challenges and opportunities for whichever, and we do have profiles of people that are going to fit that. So not everybody is made to be doing so many different, so many different components at the same time. But taking that to your job, and you work a lot mainly with startups, as I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what do you feel? And of course, it will depend on the experience, the size, and the market. But what do you see usually as a mentor? What are the most common challenges that you see, entrepreneurs facing today? And I don't know if most of them are young and it would be due to lack of experience, or if you're able to work with all sorts of experience level in such an uncertain world. What are usually the most common challenges you're facing today?
Well, luckily, lately I've been working with a lot of seasoned people, but I do work with people in all ages. And in my teams, they're all ages. And, especially with Holla and Holochain, it's like I've been with them for over 3.5 years as full time. And now I'm literally changing my hat. I'm like, oh, I'm working for them. But it's underneath the same umbrella, which is really great. And that's how I like to work. I like to work long term, like, at least a year contract, or, a long 6 months to a year contract. Because anything less than that, then you're just giving ideas. But if you're able to do work, that takes time. I think the challenges are, as always, product market fit is the number one challenge. Because it's hard. You're bringing in something innovative, and you have assumptions, and it's hard to validate them. And then it boils down to the second. The second problem is have enough funding to be able to survive that valley of you develop something, it kind of works. You need to validate your assumption. You need to find your customers, etc. You need to actually see that it creates impact, specifically with impact-based companies, and survive long enough to be able to grow. That's basically the hardest thing. Some issues are always personnel, like leadership, communication, like just what we all have issues with. And it's interesting to see how It shows up in different organizations. Hollow and Holochain, like actually, every group that I'm with right now is global. So we have both the challenges of time zones, but also culture and understanding the culture. But I also think that's part of our magic, is that it helps with diversity, it helps with growth. It's like it's both. Like with Hollow and Holochain, we doubled down on global diversity, which was really, really, really effective. We've got some really great people, and it shows. Like it's been really great to see how they grow, etc. So even through the restructure, different groups went to different ways. Some people left. Some people actually moved to the new entities, and it shows that we all want to work together. But I think there is also kind of harkening back to the beginning to the conversation before. It's like, yes, in this future, we're going to be working on everybody's projects, and it goes back to the most important thing as an entrepreneur, as a developer, as somebody working in this world, is your relationships. If you don't foster them and meet new people, foster that relationship, time manage yourself, you're not going to get there. But again, like we are in volatile times. This is the VUCA times is what is. There's like, we're not going to get we had this like a Goldilocks era, but I don't think it was that Goldilocks. Maybe it was like the end of the 90s, the beginning of the 2000s, like maybe a moment, but then 2001, the end of it, like started really started this whole trend of badness. It's and we talked about resilience. Resilience is being able to know that even in the hardest moments, there is a potential, a possibility, it doesn't always happen, of a calmer day and a more beautiful day. And then you hold on to that, and that's actually what brings you forward. So it's how do you navigate these times? And I think actually diversification is the number one thing you can do. It's like, always know. I mean, I always have like 3 ideas in the drawer. Oh, I can do this, or I can try and do that, or I can, so that's good. Part of it is diversifying my portfolio. It feels more future proof, and supporting a network. Like I've built in the past year and a half, I grew my network, I think, by 50%. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I think that's actually true, because it's not only on LinkedIn. It's my personal people that I know now, the people that are close to me. So that's part of how you deal with the times of VUCA. You create community.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I'd like to go for a bit about diversity, right? And we were just mentioning how most of the companies that you're working with, they are global. So you deal with all the different aspects of cultures and everything. And what I feel is that really being able to truly embrace diversity. So first of all, it's super hard. It's hard. Like the true diversity, because we're not just talking about cultures or genre or age, but really different backgrounds, different experiences. But the thing is that the value added, if people really have voice, if they really have a place to speak freely, right? The value that you get back is so amazing, right? Like you potentialize whatever you're doing, like getting different looks and different opinions on it, and actually being able to properly adjust. And I just feel that right now we're just going to such a different place of like moving backwards especially in the US, with all policies getting all back again, right? But on the same time, I feel that maybe we have to both to decide or move back to make the things on the proper way. I don't know, right? So maybe some policies should be reviewed. Says maybe we still have to figure out what should be reinforced and what should be really something that is done from the core. Because what I see is that many companies that just wanted to say diversity, just checking the box, okay, I hired X, Y, and Z people, but you don't really implement a culture and an environment that are going to give voice to those people. And just giving you some simple examples, like I did this course in Brazil to be on boards, right? And you have this whole movement of having more women on boards and things like that. But when you see the numbers, when you go, no, let's analyze the numbers. At least here in Brazil, you see that most of the companies are familiar companies that they have boards. Most of the few women that you have on boards, they are from the families or just people that are just there to sign off, right? So there's a long way to go. But I'm saying all of that because I wanted to understand your view as a woman entrepreneur working with companies that have this more diverse environment. Which way are we going? And when should that be more a matter of regulation or a matter of true willingness to have it implemented in a way that you can actually see value giving back to your business? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, this is that's a deep conversation. We need another hour just on that. So again, like the startups that I work with are small. So we have and what I believe in is you want to create a diverse workplace, you've got to create the ecosystem, the environment for diversity to thrive, not just find a quota, because that doesn't work. But you need to actually look out for, why for instance, we were trying to hire more women developers, but we saw that none of them were applying. And we asked ourselves, well, why? So we cannot control the environment where computer science happens. Where people are learning, that is beyond. We can try, but when people don't even apply, what do we do? And we would go and post in Women in Tech and Girls Who Code, and we actually would go there to actually attract. But a lot of times, we have our token developer, women developer, and she's amazing. But it becomes this tokenization, and it's a problem. But the reality is, just to go, let's do a T on on diversity hires is problematic. You need to create the culture that thrives in diversity, and a culture that takes a moment. Because even when I hired a few people a couple people from Kenya, phenomenal guys, really, really great guys. And, onboarding them, and I said something and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I said something and it's very cultural to my culture. Did you understand what I say? And actually, you get the culture reference, and the person's like, I'm getting it from the context, but I'm not getting it. And I'm like, okay, stop me when you hear that. Ask me, don't, this is the whole idea, make it comfortable and do the hard work of psychological safety for your team to be who are diverse, to ask those questions. Just to say, let's just get more women on the board, but make it impossible for women to join the board because the hours are hard, they're not getting paid. Even there's all these places where for instance, in America, to become a mayor, you need a lot of money. You don't have and in some small cities, it's kind of like a very small salary job. So it's expected that older white men that are retired are great mayors for small cities. But when a woman, and I actually know that woman, wanted to become a mayor, and she was a single mom, she's like, wait, this doesn't work for me. So that's kind of the thing is and the issue right now is this, there's a throwing the baby with the bathwater, an old colloquialism from olden days, where you basically are throwing everything out of the window without actually seeing that there's a nuggets of importance here that we're learning. And it takes time for culture to evolve. But there is a reluctance, and there's a war against it right now. And there's a blame for everything is that. And we know that it's not real. We know that this is a whole other these things take a long time. When you throw away things and you're what America's the federal government does now, which is cutting everything, that's brute force, and nothing good ever comes out of it, because because what it creates is just more mess and more chaos. Instead of, if you want to clean correctly, you clean a little bit slower, and you kind of look at things and you test things, and you don't. And I think that, I am an entrepreneur, and there is a whole concept of running fast and breaking things, but sometimes you're going to break it out of repair and and you're not going to be able to repair it. And then what? You created suffering for a lot of people. So I think there is that, again, we like, there's a kernel of a good idea. Diversity is important. Diverse ecosystems in nature thrive. When you have a monocrop, there is lack of thrivability. That's like part of our issue with our, big ag, etc. It creates environments where only one thing can thrive and nothing else. It's depleting our soil, etc. So if we take the same metaphor for our business world, if we just have one kind of thing, you're depleting the soil, there's not enough competition, there's not enough growth, and things start imploding. So we're seeing that in everywhere we go right now. So I really think there is, as we develop things, there's a want to rush so fast, and I think there is maybe some lessons and slow down for a minute and go like, how do we actually grow this together? Like, what does it actually mean on the future of our businesses, our world, our culture, if we allow healthier systems of diversity to show up? The issue is that right now the opinions are against it. So there is a you don't want that, instead of like, and people don't really know what they don't want. So
Okay, so Maya, I'm curious about this what you mentioned, from the transition from hero's journey to collective journey. And just by reading that, you kind of guess, right? It makes sense. I understand it's from individuals to a collective effort. But could we cover that? Could we talk about that?
yeah, so I wrote a bunch of articles almost a decade ago about from the narrative perspective, very American narrative, which is a lot of the media here is very heroic. It's a hero's journey. Hollywood's very much about it. And also living in the USA versus Israel. Israel's an interesting place. It's actually a place where individualism and collectivism kind of works together. It's one of the only places that I know that are very much like that. A lot of places kind of tend to be one or the other. But literally, it's in its inception, in its documents from 122 years ago. Like, what do we want to create here as a nation? Because, over 120 years ago, the whole world all of a sudden changed to nations, right? We evolved from tribals to bigger tribes, to clans, to cities, or villages, to cities, to civilization, empire, civilization. And then it was like the time of all empires falling down. So it's like, what do we create? So that was, over 120 years ago, 140 years ago. So coming from that background and living in the United States, which is very individualistic, I wrote kind of with a mentor of mine, I worked kind of a warning or for parable of hey, for us to actually deal with the wicked problems that are coming our way, these there's another name for it, which is the hyper objects like climate change and civilization collapse and all these poly crises that we're facing. We actually need new narratives, because our narratives are very much for the ancient times, and when we evolve it, we actually are a collective, and the collective journey is not about collectivism, because that's kind of the Star Trek Borg, where you all think in the same way, and that's definitely showing up right now in the culture and the way people are, like one thought, like we only like this color, we don't like that color, we only like this thing, we don't, and it's like that's collectivism. And the collective journey talks about the ability, kind of the superpositioning of both my own self-individual that has full rights, full self-expression, in relationship and reciprocity with the collective at every given moment. Because I'm always me, myself, but I'm always part of a community, part of a family, part of a group, part of a tribe, part of everything. And how do we actually allow for both the voice of the collective and the voice of the individual? And that's not what's happening. It's like either the voice of the collectivism or the voice of one person. And the way it shows up in business is really going back to conversation about diversity, letting all the voices show up, seeing who is in the company, in the business, and again, what the gaps are, etc., and how do we actually have an aligned voice. This is not about unification. This is about alignment. And that's the same thing about in the narrative. It's not about alignment. Is like, we know we're going to the north, and each and every one of us plays a part in how we get there. We're all important. Of course, there's some leaders and leadees and all that, and there's different roles. People have different roles in that collective, but everybody's important. And that's a different perspective. And I'm going to be biased and say that's a healthier perspective on diversity. It's like really allowing for everybody to have their space. So, yeah.
And also, at the same time, what I feel is that, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because that was an understanding that I got as well. Besides your explanation, I got a feeling when reading, like, this from the hero, also a part in which is make us as individuals somehow more accountable as well. Because I feel that usually when we still have this hero mindset and this narrative, it's just easier to be blaming whatever is happening around us and taking the responsibility out of our shoulders as well, right?
Yeah, and it's a collective responsibility. And because the kind of part of the hero is like, we wait for the hero to save us, so then we give somebody else our power. We are the victims and we want to be saved, or we're the persecutor and we want the hero to kill the persecutor. And it's always, you never get out of that in narratives. I mean, not that there are not bad people out there or people that do horrific things. Absolutely, there are. And it really is about a more diverse, empowered community thrives and is more resilient over time. And that's where the collective is. And empowering, I love that there's like an African tribe that every child has a song, and when a child does something, against the community, everybody gathers around them and sings their song to remind them who they are, and the collective actually bringing them back in, which I think is such a beautiful metaphor, because we lack that. We lack, the community going like, something happened to you. Let's bring you back in and not ostracize you. Right now, where anybody that does, like, we're in such a space of, of the hero triangle, of the drama triangle, of the hero, persecutor, and savior. And it's not that it does not exist. Of course it exists, but there's no other, we don't have enough healthy ways of dealing in the collective, and things happen that are not good. And we've fallen way into the identity politics, into the cancel culture. That's kind of the old ways of being. That's a very gut reaction into tribalism, into warring factions. And it shows up on social media. It shows up everywhere now. And that's not helping us. So
now moving on, getting a little of diversity into your areas of expertise, right? So I see that, climate, it's one of your things, right? And I also wonder, how do you see it evolving, right? And not only about talking about the denial phase or whatever, but still we do have so many opportunities when it comes to improving, right? So how do you see, and you're based in Israel?
No, I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, you're in San Francisco. So especially being based there, how are you feeling and dealing with the startups that are involved in climate tech? What is changing, and how do you see looking ahead?
So, San Francisco is an interesting space, because we're in California. California's very forward thinking. We've had things like cap and trade and like renewable energy and all these things. We're not stopping. Like, you can hear like fights from, and also the USA is a very interesting place because you have federal and you have state. So it's not exactly like the European Union, but there is similarities where they're going to try and hurt us and things are going to hurt. And we're going to fight back. And we're the 5th largest economy, California is. So, and a lot of our tax money goes to a lot of the countries. So if they want to remove taxes from the rest of the country and let us keep ours, we'll be fine with that. But yeah, there's a lot of like one of the startups I advise, like, got a bunch of grants that were part of the, the USAID, AID. Like it's a mess, but it doesn't matter. I actually pulled up a meme that's got like the climate summit and all this kind of, all the solution. And it says, what if it's all a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? So that's what I say for the climate denials. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to build a better world and where everybody has fresh air, clean drinking water and washing water, beautiful diversity and biodiversity, like animals are everywhere, everything is teeming with life. If you don't want that, then like I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yes, I know. It's really hard to believe.
Yeah. So, but there are people like that, and I'm like, great. I really sincerely believe that 90% of humanity does not believe that. So fight the 10% and support the 90 others, or maybe it's just the 1% and support the 99 others.
What I feel that those 10% are just like more vocal than the rest of the 90%,
Yeah. There's I'm not gonna say this on podcast, but like the great Jane Goodall talked about some who are the loudest monkeys in the clan. So you can go and look about that and find out the rest of it. But yeah, there are people who shout loudest. Doesn't mean that it's all true. And we know there's social media and things online, and then we meet people and most of them are very agreeable and you can talk to them. They might not agree about everything, but most people are okay, So I think that's where we start. But if we go back to climate, last time this administration was in power, investment in climate tech quadrupled during the time. So for the USA, one of the leading wind energy producers is Texas. So again, there's blabbermouths, and then there's what really happens on the ground. But it is a very volatile moment. And like the thing about the climate is that it doesn't know borders. So we have a humanity challenge, a planetary challenge to solve. And the thing is that a lot of people are down right now, but it's like, no, this is the time that we got to fight like hell for what we believe, for a future that we believe, for to be good ancestors. I'm an aunt. I have 3 amazing kids, and I want them to have a wonderful world, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm dedicated to. And we've gained there's been a lot of traction, but we also are behind on so many things, and some of it is political, and like we have to fight that. Like it's and there are different ways of doing it, but I also believe that if the US as a whole is not one thing, it's not one entity. So we're going to see different states doing different things, and then we've got the EU, and I think interestingly enough, China's changing its tune because it can, and going deep on circular economy, going deep on other things. Yes, there are a lot of issues. So there's so much work to do. And I don't remember who said it, but like we all are in the climate business. Like this is the biggest challenge to humanity. So everything we do is part of that. So you can do small things, we can do big things, but I think people should realize that we're all a part of this. And if they can't, then it's a hard one. So they do not understand that that's a hard one, but that's part of what I try to do is like even using jokes and using silly stories, because people are like, oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, you like trees, you like drinking water, you like, I say, the one of the reasons I fight for this planet is it's the only planet with coffee and chocolate that I know of.
There's so much we don't know. You never know.
Yeah, but this right now, I know that I can get coffee here. Like,
immediately.
I don't think I can get coffee on Mars.
So Maya, being involved in so many projects, and I know that, you already mentioned that, there's, you're working on something that maybe in 6 months you can come back here. But just making it, not getting into the details, but, just share with us, like, what's the next big challenge for you? Like your next big thing. What's your big plan for 2025? Yeah.
My big plan for 2025 is launching these bigger projects that involve everything, that kind of look at the connected tissue between all these things. And it really is about, society, civilization as a whole, and like, how do we improve things for people, but also get out of the biggest challenges that we have, because they're all connected. I see everything is interconnected. When we talk about, there's a denial of climate, but there's a denial on so many other things. And the issue is, you talk about when you try to get out of any kind of addiction, the first thing is you have to stop denying. You have to get out of denial. Like, we're addicted to oil, we're addicted to energy, we're addicted to this way of life. And we have to actually face and be truthful to ourselves. And in that way, we can actually find solutions. And yes, of course, 40 years ago would have been better, but we're here today and there's still a window, and then we still can change things. And then we also need to rethink how we build things in the future. So for me, that the first part of, I think one of the themes of this year is how do we go beyond bias? What is real? What is not real? And how do we actually create both the tech and the human tech to help with that? Because that's the number one. If we can't agree, if one person says climate change is real and that person is a scientist, and the other person says climate change is a hoax and that person is an influencer and has 10 times more people following them, we're in a big problem. And that's the reality right now. So how do we deal with that part? Because then we can actually, because to do all the other things, if we needed to actually solve all these issues, we have all the people, all the money, all the technology, everything. We could have solved that. The issue we have is we don't believe each other and we don't trust each other and we don't want to work together. And I'm like, great, I have all the plan. I've studied, I've got an MBA in circular economy. I have circular economy certificate, donut economic certificate, regenerative economic certificate. Like, I know all these things. I can show you plans and plans and plans. And I'm like, and my MBA project was enduring collaboration. It's like, if I don't solve the enduring collaboration between stakeholders, those models don't come into place. And I think that's part of the biggest issue that I'm seeing. So agreeing that this is real, showing here's a document, this is real. And then how do we go beyond bias and actually using our tools to tackle those issues? Because again, like I keep going back to that initial problem that I wrote in my MBA is, if I want to bring in a circular economy city or future or a regenerative economic city or regenerative city, and I don't work on the people side, those are all beautiful models and beautiful stories, but they never come to pass. And that's what I want to tackle, is that part.
Very small challenge that you chose for yourself.
Oh, tiny.
Just this little thing. Okay, and you know, for people that are just like you and trying to trail that, do you have any advice for the listeners that are out there that maybe were inspired by everything you said and, you know, are really trying to you know, join this path?
Keep at it. Talk to as many people as you can. Share your ideas. You never know what's going to happen. Like, be okay to share, because
yes,
you know, it really is about how you execute things. And I always say I'm sharing all my ideas because maybe it's not me to do, maybe I'm not going to do it, but somebody else has a spark and they know exactly what to do and they have the resources and they do it. At this point, we need all hands on deck. This is everybody's role to actually get on the stage and, in the whatever way they can, make this world better. Like, we have so much work to do in so many places. The next few years are going to be hard, but what I've learned, and I think we talked a little bit about resilience, but what I've learned in the past, especially 502 days now, since October 7th in Israel, is I used after, this is a rolling trauma. So rolling trauma means we don't know when it's going to end. So you always are very heightened. And this is the world we live in. So every group is going to get their own trauma. Like, my friends in LA suffered through the worst fires, and I had so many friends evacuate. I have some friends people that I know who've lost houses. So rolling traumas everywhere. And for me, I was kind of done with the trauma response of, the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. So I wrote about the fifth one that works for me. And that's what I took on, is forge forward, like forge friendships, forge shield, forge technology, be in the creative mode, be in creating whatever you can create. And some people it is companies, some people it's a website, some people it's a blog, some people it's really forging communities. And I think forging communities for me is the number one, is you are going to build your company, or you're going to build your innovation in a community of people. And if you remember that, you're going to thrive. And you remember to really develop your relationships. So that's what I've been really working on the past, specifically 502 days now, but ongoing, is forging community of different levels. And business community, personal communities, etc. So, and the good news is that if you do that, you'll feel richer, and doesn't matter where you are, because when you have your community around you, you feel better. So in these times of VUCA, forge community.
That's beautiful. Such a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much, Maya, for being here with us.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Maria.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.